Hello and welcome to the daily astrology for today. So today is Jupiter day, and luckily for us the sun is at 9 degrees Gemini, so there will be motivation to take action. Mars is in its natal house of Aries, and it is conjuncting Chiron at 22 degrees. So with Pluto at 1 degrees in Aquarius, the ruling sign of Uranus, at 24 degrees Taurus, with both Chiron and Mars vibrating at that 22 degree, there is a very deep receptivity to what we're healing. So it's going to feel a lot more malleable. It's going to feel like you don't have to chew it as much. It goes down easy. And seeing that the moon is in Pisces, it's going to cross over Saturn and Neptune in this 48-hour period. I feel that we're going to feel really replenished. There's a lot, again, of chaos going on in the world, but what can we do to maintain ourselves in the moment, how we show up to work, how we show up to our connections, how we show up for ourselves. So let's dive in. I've recently just decided to make my Book of Fortune free. If you'd like to tip me or whatever for this, just I'll leave it up to you guys at the end of the process, but we're going to start diving into what the Book of Fortune pertains to, and I'd like to have it open and available for people to follow with me and just to work with to help your consciousness align to the cycles, because with inside degrees they're all based on motifs and they are so powerful. If you book a reading with me and we go through your birth chart, just know that it's going to be something that blows your mind. It still blows my mind as I study it, and I've been studying inside degrees I think for the past 2 years, maybe more. I came across it likely in high school, so it's something that I've returned back to after a long pause. So, Sun at 9 degrees Gemini, let's start there. And that's all available down below in the description. You'll find all the links to what I offer online. Gemini 9 degrees, wildflowers growing around the ruins of a temple. Catching a second wind, taking a booster rocket from one cycle to another, one lifetime to another, one whole stage in evolution to another, shot out of a cannon to discover the next great thing. You're wildly attentive to signs and portents, looking for a way to the future. Coming out of immense soul experience, with flying colors leaping forth into the new, enthusiastic, naive, and impressionable, eager for 1,000 universes to come true. You feel that ultimate springtime quality of fresh immediacy and wind-blown alacrity, just sensing all through body and soul the possibilities, the openings, what wants to happen next. A destiny bearer, universal in spirit, and in the right place at the right time for remarkable synchronicities and huge turnarounds. Jupiter moved to 1 degree Gemini, so this is a transit unlike any other. I was following Sensei Chris Witecki and Robbie Hunt. They said that Jupiter and the Sun will not conjoin in Gemini, at least not this year. Could happen later on in the year, could happen next year. We shall see. I want to look up that word alacrity because that's new for me. And apparently we're going to have a vocabulary expansion. Alacrity. Brisk and cheerful readiness. So there is an optimism. There's a surge of optimism flowing with Jupiter in Gemini. And now let's look to that. Let's look to that element. Knots in a cord, they are message in a code. Coming up against limits, aware of what is not. And Jupiter is ruled by Sagittarius, the sign of Sagittarius in the zodiac. Aware of what is not. Inhabiting a bittersweet combination of longing and the quickening of awareness. What is sought and desired being indefinitely held away. Cross purposes between the greater self and the little one. The little one will not have it. Reactivities, tangents, and compulsions. Going through cycles of a very extreme kind. Always self-critical, pressurized, and suspicious. And yet, you move through all of this as quickly and as sharply as is desired or sought. Very Sagittarian. Arbitrary self-will stops the flow, and a reversal of emphasis starts it moving again. Trials, ordeals, initiations, exile, and return. So 1 degree with Sensei's step system is the degree of Leo. It's the degree of the heart, what we love and how we protect our heart. And I feel that there will be things that rattle us and that we have to come up against. However, With Jupiter at this 1 degree, it's going to make our thoughts flow towards the heart. As we're purging, I've been purging for the past few days, we're going to be led back towards the heart, back towards how we nurture ourselves at the beginning of a cycle. With Sensei's step system, we start with 0, which is Pluto or Scorpio, which is the outermost lying, potentially. Now we're discovering more planets, but the outermost lying planet in our solar system. And if you've watched Interstellar, you can see what a black hole looks like, just depicted by scientists. But to me, the magnetics of Pluto have to be very repelling. Like, they have to keep out really, really big craters. They have to keep out objects that would come in and disrupt the orbit around the sun. So when we have the right boundaries, we can protect our heart, which is the center of everything. It's the center of how we operate in the world. So when our heart feels good, when we're open to listening to our heart, we're able to have those protective boundaries. But also, it's like, which comes first, chicken or the egg or the chicken? We have to do both. So you have to know what's yours, what's someone else's. And I feel that because Gemini is the symbol of the butterfly, it represents the polarities. When we have this knowing that people will come to us with what they have inside of them, if we know what's ours, then we'll do a lot better job at refereeing these boundaries, making sure that they're active and that we can open up and let people approach only if they have a certain criteria that's worthy of that interaction, that level of engagement. Venus at 8 degrees Gemini, a chandelier which holds lit candles. Creative selfhood lights up the world. The brightness lies in the realization of being all things, becoming all things. It is everywhere at once. Nothing is linear nor consecutive. The spinning upon an axis of power. Joy lies in making the connections, in being a resource, in bringing the situation to what it can be. All is activated, mobilized. Your potential is actualized by being all-inclusive and keeping every side of your life in your sights. Lit up from within, having a place to shine. This definitely speaks to the heart and the clarity, with 8 being the number of decisions that we will get when we decide for our heart, when we are putting our heart first. All right, Black Moon Lilith, 26 degrees Virgo. Oh, here we go. An old man counting gold coins. So again, some planets and aspects are very slow moving. So it's like our awareness of what they pertain to grows over their cycle of the sun moving, Mars moving, Venus moving, Mercury moving, and we get a 360 degree view likely with some aspects, and then others move so quickly that they are the lens with which we see what's happening. Getting your bearings, determining your limits, finding a reality fix, making sure that everything is there, checking out the manifest details over and again, coming down to earth and becoming sober and straight and clear. You are overwhelmingly convinced that there must come this cleaning up and clearing up, sick and tired of pretense and hype, hungry to get down to the basics, and somewhat hooked on the quantitative intelligence, blurring distinctions, intent upon being viable, correct, and self-sufficient. If all these things are taken up with a twinkle of humor, they are digestible. But if they are becoming self-serious and a little too proper, they are deadly and sickening. You learn to throw off the attitude and cleave to the substance of getting things right, unapologetically and steadfastly. We have Dhumavati. I had a feeling that I needed to pull this, and this is 22 degrees. So that would pertain, I believe, to this Black Moon Lilith, giving this exorcism to our wounds and the actions that we've taken to either receive those wounds, receive that wounding, or the actions we will take to liberate ourselves from these wounds. Beloved mother who dwells in the smoke, who presides over the most difficult transitions, she who knows that certain endings are unavoidable. They are necessary predecessors to radical reinvention. Her presence brings the message that though disappointment, defeat, or loss and the negative repercussions of such experience may cause suffering for a time, they will not limit your future happiness. They are a means for opening as yet unrecognized pathways for fulfillment. Your trust must be unconditional at this time, and later you shall see that everything has worked out for the absolute best. So I feel that the pretense, the hype, is all something that maybe was spoon-fed to you, like someone had to really convince you to be pretentious and to have all this hype around your identity. However, Virgo being the temple keeper, someone who maintains order, they have their I's dotted, their T's crossed. This is someone who will help us to lift these fears of coming across as pretentious, of having too much hype around something that is really an act of service, an act of a gesture from this intelligence that asks us to make decisions about our feelings and what we're going to take in from others in the outer world. And we're able to come into this place of integrity and healing, because with Sensei's step system, Virgo is the ruler of Chiron, and Chiron at that 22 degrees is a breakdown to breakthrough degree. So we're able to level up and exceed the previous limitations that were imposed upon us through indoctrination, belief systems, the church, our family, what someone who we dated had to say about us, what we perceived about ourselves from past lifetimes. It's all flushing out of the system now. South Node, 12 degrees Libra. It'll be there for a minute, maybe another couple days. Throughout June, it does move to 11 degrees, but for now, it's about our beliefs. The burning of a bough of sage, wishful thinking, hoping for the best, looking towards a new start. Naive and gullible, you are suspended, quiet, receptive, and lacking in discernment. Desiring with authentic feeling to bring a resonant impulse to bear, yet hobbled by blind fervor and tunnel vision. Prone to easy ways out and ideological positions. You are oddly poised between sheer reflective inwardness and exaggerated attempts to come out with ways to get on with this shared reality. A bit confused and at a loss, but charming, endearing, appealing, well-intentioned, and idealistic in ways half delusional and half genuinely restorative. So the delusion comes from Neptune. Neptune is the planet that reveals truth. So whether you're like clairaudient, clairsentient, you have all your clairs activated, but people tell you you're crazy. Or, if you're studying with, I said that. If you are studying with some sort of mental illness and you have to see therapists, you have to take prescriptive medicine. It's like, we want to honor those things. We want to honor what makes us feel safe and what makes us feel strong and what makes us capable of going out into the world. And those things are lessons for the people who love us, because they have to see us go through a lot of hardship, okay? But it's just one of those things where it's like, is there a way that you can express these modalities with painting, with music, with some creativity that adds a bit of levity to what is so dense and so painful and really a lifelong school, if you will. Pluto at 1 degrees Aquarius. A two-headed calf. Taking a good look at things with an eager eye brings you right into the middle of the dilemma of polarities. As you stand there faced with the different sides, you are impartial. Neither side pulls you more sharply than the other. Immense opportunity, huge challenge. You have vital potential for brilliant synthesis, but a subtle temptation to think too long. Schooling in alchemy in every moment. Do you find what is ready to emerge, or do you think about it? Progressive evolution draws you through your mistakes into all that can be. So this is, again, the heart. But in the sign of Aquarius, it's opposing the heart. It is the vibration that we feel when we're in love and when we know that someone's coming to us and speaking to us with love, but it's a detachment and an ability to observe that love, to hold it at an arm's length when really, the love wants to be squished and held and adored. 1. That's so funny because it's at 1 degrees. Let's see what Rumi has to say. That is number 6 as well, so it speaks to this energy of receiving the healing, receiving the vibrations of healing even. I have abolished duality from myself. I have seen two worlds as one. One I seek, one I know, one I see, and one I call. So this would speak to that polarity, the energy of Gemini, and even the opposition of the heart and the vibrations that we feel emanating from a loving couple versus someone who's fighting with their mom. Like, we understand that all of those things form one cohesive picture, but how do we operate with agency in these circumstances? How do we reclaim our power with seeing the two sides and merging them into one two-headed calf? There is a huge challenge with Pluto retrograding in Aquarius because what Sensei said is it's like Pluto is supporting us, it's that magnetic, and then it's like the magnet kind of distances itself. So we have to do all of that heavy lifting with our integrity, with our devotion, with our dedication to what we got going on, with how we're showing up in the world. And we have to let our actions speak louder than our words at this time, because Pluto will come back, but it's going to reverse all the way into Capricorn. And I did a recent interview with a peace dealer, if you want to check that out, and he said it's like either a time to regroup for not being in your heart, and then to move forward with plans that will ultimately be revealed and fall apart, or it's going to be like an employee who worked at a corporate office going back to pick up their final belongings before they move on to be this amazing teacher and model citizen in the world, because the corporate job would be like, suppressing that expression. And then it's at 55 seconds, so that makes me think of change. Change is afoot, and we're manifesting a bigger picture based on a foundation supported by boundaries, emotional boundaries, stability, doing the work, filling the form from the artist's way. So we show up, we get our work done, and we show out. We have to take our pharmaceuticals that maybe we don't like, but they are clinically prescribed, and we have room for painting as well. We have room for drawing as well. We're not compromising. We are making sure that we are on an even keel, an even slate, so that we can move forward and help people maybe down the line that we wouldn't otherwise be able to reach. Moon at 10 degrees Pisces, so it's going to move throughout the step day. Let's see. An old witch on a windy promontory, she's calling to the sea, wildly tuned in. And this is a 10 degrees, so it speaks to that change and the vibrations emanating from this change. Wildly tuned in, staggeringly aware of the overall situation and its call, you respond deeply and with earnest, plaintive engagement with all that is happening. You're profoundly emotional, physical, and personal in order to ground and to focus a vaster attunement, urgently and critically mobilized at hotspots. Assigned to tune in to everything and make sure all the cosmic bases are covered. Inner plane's activity predominates. You live within vast worlds and are psychically charged with all that is being taken in, but your central focus is to respond, to report, to send the inner messages, to keep the lines open. So this, to me, feels like you're setting up boundaries that work for you. Emergency and crisis sensibility inside of things, searching for signs and knowing how to be there on the spot to turn things around by inward force of the magical will. That also speaks to the heart and operating in alignment with what the heart wants. Okay, Saturn at 18 degrees Pisces. White lilies blooming alone in the shade. Gifted with deep and subtle qualities which are germinating in the subconscious and coming into their own. Transported into inner worlds in order to dream, imagine, and conceive from a pure place. Disengaged with phenomenal appearances, staying just apart. Much that goes on here stays under, percolates timelessly. A special karma to cultivate the mysteries to be different yet no issue. Deep down in there, creative forces work unceasingly and design alternatives for the world to partake in if the world turns that way. So Haumea is the mother of Pele. I believe that she was born out of Haumea's leg or something. Let's find out what the book has to say. The land lives. The earth goddess Haumea, an important Hawaiian goddess. Haumea is the mother of Pele, the world-renowned volcano goddess. Pele is sometimes referred to as Haunumea, of the sacred or reddish earth. It has been suggested that this name is derived from the word Hanaumea, which means the sacred birth. Haumea's children were born from different parts of her body, including the palm of her hand, her breast, thigh, and mouth. Almost all indigenous peoples trace their descent directly to the various parts and forms of the Earth Mother. Some people believe they emerged from caves or caverns, others from mounds or mountains, and still others sprang up with plants such as corn or taro. These people are deeply aware that humans originated from the Earth and are therefore inseparably related to her. The Iroquois people of North America refer to the Earth as the turtle's back. The Hawaiian word for earth, honua, is also closely related to the word for turtle, honu. Native people of southwestern United States personify the earth as mother and the provider of food. Similarly, the Hawaiian earth goddess Haumea possesses makale, a branch from the tree of the never-failing food supply. When dipped in the ocean, the makale attracts fish. Haumea is the goddess of childbirth. In the form of Nuakea, she is the goddess of breast milk. In all her forms, Haumea is the bringer of fruition and sustenance to the people. It is she who provides the abundance necessary for life to continue. So how is Saturn allowing for you to have these structures that's birthing and generating a lot of power and impact? Saturn is a gaseous planet. I read somewhere that the particles of the planet could fit into a lake. I'm not sure what this lake would be. I have to do my research and figure out where that came from. However, you'll see it in your life. It's at 41 seconds. So the vibration of the actions you're taking for a spiritual purpose are going to be something that you love. And if you do that, then you're going to have this abundance. You're going to have, I would say, even like, you have stores on reserve, because Haumea is the goddess, the mother of the earth, and believed to provide food. So it's like these white lilies blooming alone in the shade. They're beautiful. They're coming in abundance because they're sheltered. So what in you, within your spiritual practice, within your spiritual identity, are you taking action on, and even finding a solace in that, finding a solace and a shelter in that? Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces. Balinese dancers wearing elaborate gold costumes. Scintillating performance, learning by heart all the ways to perfect the earth dance, elaborately and ritualistically devising and setting up cycles, projects, programs, and trainings to master skills, to develop missing areas and to make up for what are felt to be gaps and gaping holes. Remedial practice, going back to go forward. Relentlessly pursuing perfection, you are granted a sensibility that knows and can recognize anywhere the real thing. Good. The fulfilled prototype, tyrannically beset by the need to embody that archetype no matter what. Putting yourself through hell to make it happen, no sacrifice is too great, a virtual masochism of submission to programs, trials, and cycles. Trancing out on discipline and constraint, yet you are ultimately inspired and infused with a marvelous and even a spectacular self-witnessing capacity and self-reinventing skill that does work if you stay with it forever and refuse to hear anything less, no matter how crazy it momentarily seems. So, 7 of Earth, 7. Speaking to seeds well planted, and that 29 degree of Pisces is netting to an 11, which speaks to this healing that Chiron is giving us right now. We're being blasted with this healing energy because we are refusing to look elsewhere. Like, our soul knows where to look, so it's like showing up in everything and everyone. And 38, 11. So it's at 38 seconds, our beliefs and our decisions are being healed. And again, that nets to an 11. So it's looking at Chiron, which is working with Black Moon Lilith around the decisions that we've made to maybe compromise how we live our lives, how we decide to provide for ourselves. And what I'm letting people know is, like, don't just quit your job out of the blue right now, because I think yoga teachers, my husband, he was very against it, even though I don't necessarily need to work right now. He was like, they earn like $20 an hour, and every yoga studio's they're filled up, they're booked. You have to pay for that teacher training. You have to do things that would drain your financial resources if you were to just hop ship. So how can you set up your workplace to be your first client? Like, as if your work needs you to show up as if you're this yoga teacher, and that yoga is that service. It's one of the pillars of yoga. I forget what it's called, but it's like your life is service. And you can show up to your workspace having spent an hour in meditation before you start, which is required because yoga classes are for people who work too. You know, you might have to start waking up at 5 a.m. to get all of the work done that you need to get done before you hop on that train, before you get in your car to go to work. If you're working from home, you might need to do some feng shui in your workplace, in your home office, to make sure that you have the right energy to give. Even with my setup, it's like I have to do the practices. I have the gift of having a fresh breeze come through. If you hear the sway of the palm trees, that's very restorative and deeply relaxing. But there's more that has to be done because this is also my art studio. So again, work with your energy. Work with the energy of your workplace. Work with your job as if it's the opportunity to start doing what you love now. Even if you have to just, change some things around in your own little, if you have a cubicle and you take down any pictures that are kind of disturbing and you put up some of your spirit team, your spirit guides, people can't really front you on that because there are lots of things that people have to do in their workplaces. There are plenty of people who have to pray throughout the day. You could wear different clothing perhaps. Maybe you have different underwear that you wear. Like the colors can match your chakras. You could do a lot of things if you're being resourceful and if you want to save up enough money to be able to have an amazing experience. Like don't just make your yoga teacher training somewhere like local. Do your astrocartography map, book a reading with me. Let's see where you would get the most benefit of doing a retreat that builds your yoga teacher credentials and then put you in a place to where it's like maybe in a year's time you have enough money saved to where you could take a full year and do immersions, do retreats, and then after that year you're hosting retreats. It's something that can be so much more with Neptune at 29 degrees Pisces and direct. And then Saturn there too. Saturn is going to lend a lot of infrastructure and support, and we're going to be able to build the right boundaries with Pluto and Aquarius around the vibe. So if the vibe of your workplace is making you sick, can you bring crystals? Do you have plants that you can have and tend to and you bless the water? There's a lot that you could do without just having to remove the one area of stability. I've done it so you don't have to. I was literally at my wit's end. No money was coming in. Like I was working at a Waldorf school and they wouldn't, like, it was just something that I was in such a tight corner. And that was a part of my initial 6'2" projectorism's martyrdom, so that I had to learn to stop martyring myself to serve. It's not required. So don't do that. If anyone's wondering, should I quit my job? Give yourself at least a month or two to really think about it, to start finding things that are more aligned, but then also working on your own energy, because you may not have to leave your job. You might love what you do after you start switching up your energy. All right, North Node at 12 degrees Aries. An old woman hears the stars talking to her at night. Soul gifts from the morning of the world now turning into treasures untold. A quality of being, a presence, an aura which fills the world. You are the microcosm here and now. For so many worlds, there is wonder and awe, discovery, and an odd echo of fate. All of this has happened before, nothing is new. A twilight state, the repeated awakenings, and yet still dreaming on. Majestic vistas. So much to conceive, all exists inside, yet in the secrecy of the heart, no clues are offered. All remains bare and stark. Oh, there's a card, Five of Fire. So things are changing within our identity because, yeah, there is some conflict, but I mean, come on, we're speaking about Aries, ruled by Mars. There's a card in the Rumi deck that says, if you want to be written on, become a blank page. And I feel that right now, anything goes with your identity. So let's say that you've been dying to dye your hair blue. If you do that and you work a corporate job, I feel like we are entering a time where, there are ways to go about that and make it happen. Can you buy a blue wig and just rock that on the weekends? Do you have to take everything to an extreme right now? And I say that with so much love because I know that there are many ways to look in the world. A few years ago, there were articles about women with natural hair being punished, like girls in schools. So it's something to where it's we don't have to live in the same constraints with our identity, but how can we, take baby steps? Because there might be people who will judge you and that would impact you in a really negative way. It would make you feel feelings that maybe you don't have the support right now to process and to go through. But what I will say is this: protect what you love. Protect yourself. do the things that make you unique in ways that amplify your truth, your beingness. So if you're thinking about shaving your head, let's look at that spiritually. Our hair represents our wisdom. And I've been practicing a Vedic practice of actually burning our hair because it's meant to conserve your wisdom rather than giving it to the birds for their nests, which I know a lot of people do. I did that for years. How can you conserve your wisdom? How can you do things that will propel you into a safe and secure future when the world is so uncertain right now? Like, nothing is necessarily safe. You can work a job for 60 years and then, your workplace doesn't have the money that they thought they did. And then they have to lay people off, and maybe it's a job where your skills can transfer, but if it's not a workplace that was paying you to study and learn and to become a better asset, how can you take that power into your own hands to become self-informed, to do your study on youtube.edu? That's youtube.com for those of you guys who are curious. How can you find people who teach you how to grow your skills? That'll come in handy because we are coming into a place where our authenticity is going to be super rewarded and super valued in the coming years. Once AI is able to exceed human cognition, the more authentic you are, robots might become like people and they might want to learn from us. They can even help us to further and more rapidly process what we have as tools, as conscious individuals, as a conscious species. Chiron and Mars at 22 degrees Aries. Puppets coming alive at night. The inner worlds can be just as animated, as fully fleshed out, as vivid and vibrant as any outer world could ever hope to match. There are vast kingdoms to explore on the inner. It's all a matter of motivation. If you seek for inward substantiation, you will get it to infinity and beyond. Here, you get what you ask for. Everything snowballs. It tests you mightily in that everything inside comes out. A wish like magic becomes embodied. Being so fertile and ingenious is one of the most demanding possible arenas to put yourself in. Most difficult of all is that if you fear or dread, resist or deny, these two have full power to play themselves out all the way. The inner life becomes a place where everything's happening and where you must cultivate your highest and your best, or else be treated to the validation and proof of whatever you put in there coming out again, amplified, magnified, completely full on. There is no avoiding ourselves right now. Our identity has to heal. We have to have openings. We have to have secret pages if you can't come out spiritually to your family. We have to have networks of support. Debt Makers is a great one. Sirius Joy is a great one. There are plenty of places online. I think even Steve Nobel, he has like a website for members, and he's based in the UK for anyone watching me from there. There are plenty of, and these are all men. So if you have women who you can turn to, just know that Sirius Joy does work with a lot of female astrologers and healers. And of course, once we rise above gender, we're able to really express ourselves in our fullness, in our completeness. We don't have to be too feminine. If you can't tell, I'm like wearing a, very kind of masculine look. I have like a top knot. I don't have any jewelry on, and I have my Rudraksha beads. But it's like, can you embody both? Can you still have that masculine energy to support your creative feminine urges and goals and dreams? Because when you do, you're going to be able to accept the polarity, the shifting that's happening with the sun in the sign of Gemini and the stellium of planets expanding our thinking, expanding our ability to hold what is and what could be, what we love and what we don't love, what we see within ourselves and then our shadow that we have yet to integrate. And I find that the mirror doesn't become you. This comes from Aquarian Insight, one of my favorite astrologers and tarot readers. The mirror does not become you. So when you look at a mirror and it's frowning, you can't try and change the frown in the mirror. You have to look at yourself. And there are plenty of techniques that we could do for like self-massage to get out any sort of like aches and pains that might even be stifling us. Like in the past few days, I've had such an immense clearing, and I think it's because we're going through the Photon belt with, the current precession of the equinox, and there's a lot of plasma entering our solar system. So thank you so much for tuning in to Daily Astrology. I hope that this helps. I didn't look at Mercury and Uranus, so let me do that before I log out. Mercury at 23 degrees Taurus. I knew there was something off. We're missing Taurus. And that's the 12th house of Gemini. So these are going to have a lot more of a spiritual implication, and they'll fit very snugly with the message for Neptune and the moon and Saturn. Taurus at 23 degrees, a salamander glowing red-orange, burning up with the inner flame of creativity and creative activity in the soul realms, the inner life raging with power and insistent force, a level of attunement to the central flame of your being that will not quit, the impassioned desire to manifest perfectly what lives inside, the alchemical intention to burn away the dross and return to pristine selfhood at long last, an extremely sharply motivated path of development, difficult to harness, yet the mastery called for is just what you seek to do. Embody, and anything more reasonable seems easy and lazy. One pointed drive to strip away all but self and be true to self in a fashion which will burn a hole in the world. Whoa. And then Taurus at 24 degrees, a man with no mouth. Nothing to say, everything to do. The self cannot be articulated because it's far too busily pressed and progressed out into emergency mobilization 24 hours a day. No personal life, no personal world, no personal self. So this is very Aquarian. Of course, it's Uranus right now. It's very Aquarian. So this speaks to that energy that I spoke to at the start of this with Pluto at 1 degrees Aquarius. Just fantastic availability to the call, the collective vigil, entered upon willingly and selflessly. The demands and rigors of this position and stance are punishing and extreme. You are so hard-pressed, so rabidly attentive that nothing else exists. The assignment is clear, brutally so. Be on the spot at every level, maintain order, keep everything going, and stay tuned to everything unusual and strange. Follow it out, keep it in your sights, and make absolutely sure that you stay sober, integrity sworn, and minutely diligent to hold the center and uphold the law with a steadfastness that is beyond belief and simply true. So sobriety is a virtue, and I had a note of the Roman virtues. Sobriety. Virtue. Well, we know it means like not... okay, cool. Thank you, Merlin. Merlin AI. Sobriety refers to abstaining from alcohol, while virtue is the state of having moral excellence and being guided by good principles. The two concepts are sometimes linked, as sobriety is often seen as a necessary step towards leading a virtuous life. Many people find that sobriety helps them become more self-aware, self-disciplined, and focused on their values and goals. In spiritual and religious traditions, sobriety is often connected with the idea of self-control, including control over one's passions and actions. Ultimately, the connection between sobriety and virtue can vary greatly depending on one's personal beliefs and experiences. So I have been sober from alcohol since 2022, so it's going to be 2 years exactly come like July. And towards the end of July, like closer to August. And I can say this, I've never felt better. Like I look better. I probably look a lot younger than I did when I was drinking. My energy has shifted. My face has shifted. Like my body has changed. And I would say that the sobriety, if you still consume alcohol, it would be towards having control over your passion and your actions, which I speak to in the week for June 4th through the 10th, which means that we're moving from this hysteria, like, you know, when you're drunk and you can kind of get hysterical, to passion and brittled passion. So it's not just a horse running wild, but it's a horse that you are in rhythm with, you are in unison with, and you're riding this horse into the sunset, and it's a yay victory because you love your horse, but you understand that to ride, you have to be very focused and you have to be very deliberate with your actions. You have to be direct. And I feel that this direction, through the sign of Gemini, we're going to come into a very dynamic harmony because Venus conjoins the sun starting on June 4th. And what this does for us is it gives us a lot more confidence, acting in unison and rhythm with our heart. And because we're having all of this spiritual healing, a lot of spiritual processing is coming up and exiting the system. If we're willing to let go, we will heal a great deal of what we have been burdened with what has been holding us back from being our pure, authentic self. So this concludes today's daily astrology. Tune into my other recordings and download your free version of the Book of Fortune so you can follow along and chart your course in 28 days. Aloha.